Hey everybody, I haven't done a thing in a while, so I'm going to do a thing. I'm going to talk briefly, hopefully, about some chord shapes that I use a lot. People tend to like when I do chordal stuff a lot, so I'm going to just briefly show off a few shapes that I use a lot. And if you're not aware with how chords are made or how scales are built, that is a huge, huge part of doing chordal bass work. It really requires a knowledge of where you're going and being familiar with how scales and chords within those scales are built. Not saying you need to have that knowledge. Actually, sometimes it can be helpful to not know what you're doing and come up with really interesting stuff on your own. But personally, my knowledge of scales and chords, I feel that I have to be entirely knowledgeable of what I'm doing at all times, which can be a shortcoming, but it tends to work great for me. So I'm just going to talk quickly about this. Some of my favorite chord shapes, some that just take up a 3-string spacing that I overuse probably, is just a simple root. So let's say D. I'll use a root, third, 7. So in this case that would be D, F sharp, C sharp. And then what I'll do is I'll apply that same chord tones, but to like a minor chord. So 1, flat 3, flat 7. So in this case, D, F, and C. And really, you can do all kinds of stuff just using those two. And especially if you get comfortable with where they're located in a scale. Like say I'm in the key of D. If I want to change it up and, do something melodic. So like all I did right there was hammer on from the 6th to the 7th and then go down to the 5th with my pinky, but still have the 6th right here. So I'm doing root 5, 6, which is D, A, and B. Simple stuff like that. So if I'm still in the key of D, knowing which notes you can kind of move in and out of. Whereas if you're not really paying attention, you can do certain stuff like, which technically isn't correct to go to that C in the key of D. Still sounds cool. It's just not technically correct, and if you've got someone playing chords behind you, you might sound a little off, that's all. So those are two really, really simple ones. Another easy one that takes up just 3 strings is root, 5th, 9, or 2 if you want to call it that. It's just an octave above the 2, so I prefer to use 9. Just a nice, it sounds evenly built. It sounds very solid. And then you can like go down to the octave, move that down to the 7th, down to the 6th, or, I missed the note, but same thing. Hammering on to the 3rd gives it a really nice sound, and it just takes up 3 strings. And personally for me, I'm using a 6-string bass, which is tuned B, E, A, D, G, C. So I have a little more tonal range possible. I can go up higher, do stuff that would probably sound better on a bass than some stuff would sound on a 4-string. But you can do anything on any bass. You just have to spend time learning your specific bass and what sounds good on it. I mean, some amazing bass parts are built up on 4 strings, and it's just 10th chords, which is basically like, say, E. If we go up 10, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, that's a 3rd, an octave above the 3rd closest to the root. I use 10 chords all the time, actually, especially live. It can add a lot to the low end, because if you're doing just a third above this, that doesn't sound too good. But like right there, that'll sound really nice, especially like if you're doing an intro to or an outro to a song where you're switching between chords. That really can fill out the bottom a lot instead of just doing a single note or just octaves. Doing 10th chords are huge. And, you know, it goes on and on from there. All right, now those chords, 10th chords, you have to use a total spacing of 4 strings. So like on a normal bass, this is the top string, this is the bottom string, so you're going all over. Now, a lot of chord stuff I do requires at least 4 strings. One of them, probably most used by me, would be just a simple root, 7, and then third above the 7. It just has a little more of a singing quality than that 3-string voicing I showed you, which would be like this. Still sounds good, but I love the way that sounds. So like that's a major 7, minor 7. So it'd be like a major 6, because I've got the root, a 6 above the root, and a major 3rd, which would be a 10. And that's why I think it's so important to know some theory, mostly how scales are built. Because if you can have a good knowledge of what chord you're on and how the notes in that scale work together, or where they're located mostly. Like if I'm in the key of A and I'm playing a B minor, I know that if I move my ring finger and place my index finger just 1 fret below that, that's a minor 6. So it's got root, 6, and then a minor 3rd. If you're thinking in terms of minor, usually you would think of a flat 6. Excuse me. But since we're in the key of A B minor would incorporate that 6. So that's one, just being able to move around chords well and knowing what notes go along with those specific chord changes. So like A major 7, I know I go down to a major 6, B minor 7, I know I go down to a major 6 right there as well. C sharp minor 7 in the key of A, I would have a minor 6. D major, minor 6. Then you get to something like an E. It would be an E7, because in the key of A, E would have a flat 7. Oops. And I know I would have a major 6 on top of that. So it's basically just learning the different qualities of the different chords in a given key. And of course it changes if you're getting into strange scales that I don't know enough about. I pretty much stick with the major modes because that's what I know, and I can kind of work around any strange stuff knowing what I know about that. All right, so anyways, getting off topic as usual, chord voicings. One of my favorites, 1, 7, 3. And then if you get into something like a 5-string voicing, if I go down to like E, keeping the 7 and 3 from the B minor, and just changing the root to an E, that's an E sus. Moving the 4 down to a 3, 4 of the chord, sorry. It'll bring you back to that. And when I'm doing this kind of stuff, I use 2/5s like I don't know what else I'm doing. Basically, 2/5s are one of the building blocks of popular music, especially jazz standards, that kind of stuff. They just have this amazing quality of bringing you, centering you into the key so you know where you're going. So like, that's a 2/5 in A, 2/5 in B. Or you could just string them together. And like what I did right there, that's that major 7 voicing I like a lot. Moving the 7 down to a 6, but then randomly putting a minor 6 over this major 10 gives a little dissonance. And as I talked about in that big soloing lesson I did some time ago, one of the most important things is tension and release. You want to kind of bring in strange tensions like that and then resolve. It keeps the listener engaged. It keeps you engaged, especially. It makes everything a little less bland. So basically all I was doing right there was doing that B minor voicing, or minor voicing that I was talking about, which is just root, flat 7, minor 3rd. Move the flat 7 down to a major 6, down to a minor 6, down to 5. So it's basically just a minor voicing. And then I moved the 2 outmost notes down a step to create another minor voicing, down to another step to create this other minor voicing, which has a 6 in it. It's an A minor 6. And then went up a 4th to make it a 5 chord, and put myself in a new key of G. This is one of those things where it's good to know the characteristics of chords so you know how you can get from one place to another. So like A major again. If I do a 2/5 to B minor, and then do that strange transition I just did, I'm really out of the key right now, but I just transported us to G from A. It sounds a little off, but if you can familiarize your ears and your brain with that kind of stuff, it really opens up a ridiculous amount of space for you to do stuff. And of course, this is like, in the world of jazz, this is fairly basic stuff. But for people that don't understand this kind of thing, this can be way out there. And people, if I am tooling around at sound check or something, doing this kind of stuff, people think you're a genius. But really all you're doing is incorporating your knowledge of scale notes and chords and how they fit together in ways that you can kind of manipulate it and move around and do all kinds of junk. And like I just showed you, I think 4 fairly simple voicings, like that major one, which takes 3 strings, the minor one, which takes 3 strings, major which takes 4 strings, major which takes, minor that takes 4 strings, and then like I also threw in that 5 string spaced 7 chord one, which it gets a little out there once you get into 5 strings. You got to do all kinds of moving around, but like those are enormous building blocks to start building this kind of stuff on top of. And then you bring in open strings. You can do all kinds of stuff with that. Even doing some of these simple voicings over like an open A. It can sound really cool. Even the ones that are really out like that, it just opens up a whole nother space for you to be doing this stuff. Anyways, I feel like I'm just rambling on and on and on. That's just a basic look at the way that I think of some chord stuff, and basically the simplest voicings that I use very often. And then I'll leave you with one more, which is my personal favorite because, I don't know, I like weird. It's not even weird, it's just slightly dissonant. It's an A minor, but it's an A minor 9. So it's based on ACE, which is just an A minor. But what I do is I do this open A string, do the 5 of E, and then do the 9, kind of like that stacked 5th one that I showed you. Do the 9, which is B, and then on top I add a C. Something about that step between B and C, half step rather. I don't know, I love it. And you can do that on a 4-string, of course, in the key of E. And then, of course, if you keep that A string open, you just... all kinds of stuff. Like just stacking fourths across 3 strings and doing an open string type thing. All kinds of stuff. It's really not that tough once you get a handle on what kind of sounds you like and how you can fit those into basically your basic knowledge of chords and chord structure, that kind of thing. It's not that difficult. It's just something you need to spend, you know, a few days, just spending an hour a day working on, okay, how do I build this chord? How does it fit in this key? And basically just using your ear. Never forget to listen constantly to what you're doing and let that guide you more than anything else. Anyways, I'm going to shut up, go practice. I should probably do the same and familiarize myself with the notes on my fretboard a little bit. Anyways, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Hit me with any feedback. I'll see you soon. Bye.